Okay, I just wanted to release this full unedited interview. Originally, I split it up into four parts because I thought that'd be easier to digest. But here it is, the uncut, unedited version. Most of you guys have already seen
Hello,
it.
hello.
Hey, how's it going, Chris?
Good sir. How are you?
Good. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can.
All right. Hey, thanks for taking time to talk with us. It's like 9 p.m. on a Wednesday night, and you're still in the office taking time to talk to the community. So we appreciate the work ethic and the dedication, obviously.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's get started since I know that you got to get back to your family. Um, I want to
Okay,
talk.
well, you've been doing well. You should
Yeah,
come to the shop sometime. You're not that far away. You can do
no,
this.
no, I've been trying to set up a time with Chris, and like things have come up,
Yeah.
and oh yeah, I'm hoping to come down sometime in the next month or so, hopefully. So hopefully I'll see you down there again.
Random
Um,
got this background, but
yeah,
hopefully.
that looks great. You got the real one. I got the virtual one. Is that okay? That is Gamma
Yeah.
behind you, but the wheel covers are off.
Yeah, we just got back from an event. I think it was up
Okay.
at Dana Point for something. It was some YouTube review.
Oh, okay. Okay. And you were
Oh,
at some
cool.
investor thing a few days ago or last
Yeah,
week or
we're up
something.
in Newport Beach,
Hmm.
hobnobbing, hanging
Okay.
with the wealthy folk of Newport Beach, and yeah,
Yeah.
having a good time.
Okay. Yeah. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about first. It's probably not the most fun topic, but a very important one. Money. And there was a mention about Steve talked about that there was maybe four different pathways that you guys could get into production. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. Money is the lubrication that gets Apteras flowing to the world quicker.
Hmm.
And we wish that the markets were a little more kind, but the last 2 years have been a bit of turmoil, and the last few months have been a bit of turmoil. But the interesting thing about interest rates going up is the debt markets have kind of exploded. So we've been exploring some options on the debt side. We've been exploring some sovereign options, not a lot of capital moving on the equity side in the US, but in Europe, parts of Asia and the Middle East, people are buying technology, and we are it.
Hmm.
We are bleeding edge technology in many ways. So those conversations are going well, and New York seems to be having a little life breathed into it. So the ARM IPO was recently pretty successful.
Hmm.
Um, and those guys forecast 6 months, a year out. So I think they're starting to feel better about some of these deals coming together in IPO work and equity deals in general. So obviously we would like for somebody to buy up the 500 accelerator spots that are left for
Hmm.
$500,000 each, and put some money in the bank, and then have that inspire a billionaire to just write us a healthy check that we could move on into production. But um, as expected, it's taken longer and been more complex than anyone thought. And I
Hmm.
think it'll probably be a mix of a lot of different things. It won't be just one piece of debt or one inspired billionaire. It'll be a little of this and a little of that, and a little crowdfunding and a little of equipment financing, and a little of our suppliers stepping up and saying, we'll front the capital for this, and you guys can push, push, push.
Hmm.
And we've had a few of them do that, and some
Okay.
more recent deals too. So we are pushing towards production. Even though some of the market forces on the financing side have been against us, and just a couple of weeks here now, we'll be finishing up the tub with CPC, and that will be our full body structure. We're as ready for production as we've ever been,
Hmm.
in that regard. And we've already locked down 92% of our bill of materials in terms of value. There's a little bit left to go, screws and hoses and stuff like that, but the vehicle is ostensibly done. So now we just have to go about the work of getting the tools and equipment, going through some ED&T and development work with people like the ABS supplier and the airbag supplier that has to program the computer that launches the airbag and that sort of stuff. And that work is underway, and the next few months will be exciting for sure.
Yeah. So I know, crowdfunding has been very good for you guys. And obviously, the Aptera story and vision is very attractive to a lot of people. A lot of people are very, very interested and invested in Aptera. But have you guys gotten any investors in the past year or two, other than the what shows up on the accelerator program, like bigger investors that maybe don't care about that and not are not on the thing? Because you
Yeah,
guys have been talking to people for ever since thing started. I mean, that's like basically your full-time job is trying to find money for this.
yeah, we as the market started to crumble, we were really looking for institutional capital. So,
Mm-hmm.
a big check from a big institution that would give us some kind of credibility.
Mm-hmm.
And we just went out a little too late to make
Mm-hmm.
those deals happen. So we did not raise that institutional capital, and it was really the end of last year, heading into Q1 of this year, where we're like, well, we've played this strategy out too long.
Mm-hmm.
We start coming up with some new strategies. So that was Steve and myself hopping on the phone, getting on the plane, heading to Europe and Asia and the Middle East,
Mm-hmm.
shaking the right hands and talking to the right people to try to bring together some of these bigger deals.
Yeah,
Mm, those deals are still underway and still progressing, but but nothing has officially closed yet.
I
Um,
see.
we have had some options that we could have taken along the way.
Uh-huh.
We didn't feel that those options were healthy for the company, though. So,
Right.
you know,
I
continue
mean,
to
a lot of us suspect that maybe you guys were offered things, but you had to give up too much control, or the vision of Aptera might have been diluted by certain options, and maybe that's maybe you can't really talk about those, but
I mean, some of the options were to not do as much here in the U.S., but to do them in other places of the world.
mhm.
Not so much that we would lose control of the company. I
Uh,
think Steve and I positioned the company very well to not lose control of the company. So
right.
there's no scenario that we're considering where we lose control of the company.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, we need the right deal, and the right deal comes with the ability to scale into high volume manufacturing quickly. And
Mhm.
we want to deliver 1 million of these Aptera by 2033. So,
Mhm.
we don't want to start slow. We want to start fast. We want to start here because we've already invested in the supply chain and the mechanisms to build vehicles in Southern California. So if you yank that out and go, put it in Ireland or somewhere else, then
Mhm.
and it's starting over from all the work
Yeah.
we did here and have to do it somewhere else. So,
Right. And you've already taken like grant money from California and stuff. That
yeah, we've kind of made intrinsic promises, to
yeah.
be here in California and add jobs here in California. And we
Mhm.
love Carlsbad. It's a good place to be, and we want to
Mhm.
be enormously successful here, and then build a factory up north in San Francisco and Texas and Georgia and Virginia and
Mhm.
Australia and the Netherlands and Germany and maybe England or Ireland over time,
Right.
and really spread the Aptera ethos around the world. But it all starts in Carlsbad, and we've had some things come up where maybe you guys could come over here and do it over here, and we've said no, we don't like that. So
Mhm. So did I hear correctly that you guys plan on getting at least to low volume production without additional like any inspired billionaire? Like it's not necessary because we know we've heard you guys say that you need $50 million to make it to initial high volume production, and that so far hasn't surfaced. But is there a plan? Like, can you make it to low volume production and deliver some customer vehicles without that happening?
yeah, I mean, ostensibly that's what we're doing now. The
Yeah.
first production
Mhm.
intent builds and the validation builds. I mean, we are building vehicles, so that is low volume production.
Mhm.
Everyone's kind of told us though that if you want to scale, design the facility, hire the people, work the supply chain such that they can hand you 80 vehicles a day worth of parts.
Mhm.
Don't start with 2 vehicles a day, because then if you go to 10 vehicles a day, everybody loses their mind that, oh, it's impossible to go from 2 to 10. You want to go from 10 to 80 a day, then people really shit their pants.
Mhm.
So we want to raise the money to get this into 20,000 units a year here in Carlsbad, California. But it's just the nature of getting this vehicle certified, and getting kind of the durability and general testing done, that we've got to build a lot of vehicles to do that. So we will be in limited production, here in just a few months, and
Mhm.
that will be because we have to get the airbags calibrated and work on the ABS and the spring rates, and work on NVH and where we're going to put the noise dampening and stiffness of the seals for the door. There's a laundry list of stuff and it takes more than a dozen vehicles just to do the basics, and some more, to kind of do the niceties. And
Hmm.
if you want to do some marketing along the way, you better have some pretty vehicles mixed in there. So,
Yeah.
so the goal is to get the first production intent vehicle built as quick as possible, learn from that, and then immediately start on 2, 3, 4, 5, 12, 20,
Hmm.
and, have vehicles running around, getting us third party validation, getting us good press,
Hmm.
getting us crash video, getting us, skid pad test video. I mean, Gamma's been great.
Yeah.
We introduced Gamma a year ago, and it did take some time to finish up some of the odds and ends, but now we have a whole new body structure, and a lot of new components from here, where the component made it on the vehicle, but the component for production is just way different, way cheaper, way different to install. The wiring harness, you wouldn't even be able to, if you laid the wiring harness for Gamma out on a table and you looked at the production harness, it would just look nothing like the wiring harness. So there's a lot of unique things that had to evolve for the production intent build,
Hmm.
but it's gone to plan. I think the extra time is kind of a blessing that, if we would have gotten that inspired billionaire a year ago, year and a
Hmm.
half ago, we'd have had some real supply chain issues trying to slam this into production,
Mm.
and definitely cost us more to not have the time to plan it correctly. So, hopefully investors realize that, hey, these guys have more than a complete vehicle. They've worked with some of the industry best.
Hmm.
CPC in Italy, having worked on some of the most amazing supercars in the world. We also have an amazing engineering group over in Italy now. Sandy Monroe and Monroe and Associates, Yazaki helping us with the wiring harness, some great tier one battery suppliers on the battery pack side. I mean, we've really gotten a coalition over the
Hmm.
last year of some amazing groups that will make this the most manufacturable vehicle in the world. I truly believe that,
Hmm.
and that will reduce costs and add surety to our production timeline and make a very durable and high quality vehicle right off the bat. I
Hmm.
think a lot of other companies have kind of stepped into production without the partners that we've had, and they paid the price. From wiring harnesses, one of the biggest failures in a lot of new motorcycle and vehicle programs is connectors. So we designed a wiring harness that just had the least amount of connectors possible,
Hmm.
and then we went to the world's best wire harness company, Yazaki. They're in half of every new car sold, and
Right.
we're so inspired by our vision for solar mobility. They embedded several engineers here for several months and helped us really refine that wiring harness, and that takes a big risk factor off for our reliability.
Hmm.
And same thing with the body structure. The next thing mechanically is the stuff that you use a lot. So it's the steering column, steering wheel, the stuff you touch in the interior, and the doors. Every time you get in and out of any vehicle, you're opening and closing the door.
Hmm.
So, a lot of vehicle engineers would say, a car program really starts with the doors, and then
Hmm.
you build the rest of the vehicle around it. We have very unique doors. So, to have Roush Engineering help us design those doors, and then have CPC help us refine them, means that we'll have a very well tolerance door made out of carbon. It's going to have, great tolerance stack up, and, the hinges that we're using are pretty amazing, and the latches are reliable and have already been on hundreds of thousands of vehicles. So, wiring harness, body structure, doors, suspension with automotive grade components. I think we've done a really good job the last year of kind of ticking through a lot of high risk areas and making them as low risk as possible. So hopefully that all bleeds through to the investors, and they go, yeah, I'm going to help you build 1 million vehicles in the next 10 years.
Hmm. Is one thought like to get into like low volume production, and then once you've established that you have a supply chain and you have a vehicle and customers are buying it, to go IPO to get money for that? Is that like a plan maybe?
Maybe there
Hmm.
are some IPO options
Hmm.
that really don't depend on revenue, but can
Hmm.
can get you out there and can raise you some capital.
Hmm.
Um, Obviously everybody wants liquidity, so the markets give you liquidity. So if the investors know, hey, there's liquidity on the other side, it's easier to invest in the program, knowing that you don't have to wait for the company to exist for another 6 or 8 years, and then for the management to go, oh, we think we should do an IPO now.
Hmm.
Some companies happen like that, like commodity companies and stuff. They're able to pay dividends along the way, and the investors just soak up the dividends. But we're a tech company. We're always going to be reinvesting. So, kind of the golden strategy is get the company public, and then that's the liquidity that people are looking for.
Okay. A couple of weeks ago, you guys said that CPC had most of the molds done and we're already stamping out parts, but the tub and a few other parts weren't quite done yet. Do you know, like, where are we at with CPC and the body parts? Are still a couple of parts still needing to be done, or are we stamping out the parts now?
Yeah, I mean, Steve and I were in Italy. I guess it was 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago.
Mhm.
But they had every tool done except for the roll hoop and the tub.
Okay.
And since then they've finished the roll hoop, and they've been mightily working on the tub. The
Okay.
problem is the tub is so big that CPC didn't actually have the machine to mill the tool themselves.
Uh-huh.
Had to go to another part of Italy to somebody who has a massive CNC machine.
Uh-huh.
And they actually started the tub almost at the beginning of the tooling program, but it's now the last tool to get finished just
Oh,
because
okay.
it's such a monster
It
of a tool.
takes that long to make one of those, huh?
Yeah, I mean, one of the most time consuming of the process is actually getting the heating in the tool. So milling the surface is one thing. You got to mill it 4 times. You got to rough mill it, and then a little
Uh-huh.
finer milling, and then you get the nice smooth shape like the pictures you've seen of the CPC tools.
Hmm.
But then you have to kind of cross bore into the tool, and you've got to run these heating circuits all through the tool. And
Oh, okay.
the heat comes in the tool and heats
Hmm.
it up to the right temperature, and that's what makes the carbon fiber SMC goo flow through the tool. You know,
Oh, okay.
you imagine it's like a waffle iron. You have a waffle iron, and you put a candy bar of SMC thermoset resin and carbon fiber. Is what
Hmm.
it is. And it's just a candy bar that sits in there, and then you close the tool, and then because of the heat, it's able to smash that material out through the
I
part.
see.
And
Huh,
it's
huh.
strategic on where you place the material to start. So that's some of the fine tuning that they were doing when we were there at CPC.
I
And
see.
once they fine tuned that, obviously they have simulations that tell us where it's supposed to go, but
Hmm.
you never know to actually build the tool, make the part. So once they run through, where to place material and how it flows out, and once they get it perfect, then they send it back to the coordinate measurement machine, and they make sure that the part thickness is all right. Because you can measure the tool and other stuff, but then when you put it under pressure and you heat it up, some weird things happen sometimes. So those pictures that we had of the carbon fiber and glass fiber SMC parts that we had that had the green sticker on it, those have already been through the whole process. The tool was validated, it's pressed parts, then the part was validated. Those are then production parts once they have green stickers on them. So the tub tool has not gone through that process yet. So,
Okay.
the next few weeks, they will get that tub tool. Last I heard, they were putting the heating stuff on it.
Hmm.
So hopefully that's done in the next few weeks, and then they'll make those parts. And it does take, sometimes a couple weeks. And because the tub is the largest part that they've ever made,
Okay.
could take some time
Hmm.
to get it just right. But here we sit in October. We're hoping that in November we're seeing the first tubs,
Okay.
and once they have the tub, then it's just putting those body structures together. And
Okay.
CPC is very good at that. They do it for name some of the biggest, coolest supercars that I used to salivate over when I was a
All right.
kid, and they've done it to those tolerances for $1 million vehicles that look as cool and perform as cool as you would expect.
Hmm. Hmm.
From
So yeah,
million
so the tub is left basically.
the tub and the roll hoop. Yeah,
The world, and
I
so
haven't seen a
they are
green
going to
roll
put it
hoop.
together and then ship the completed bodies to Carlsbad.
Right now, we're still working with some European suppliers on the frame and the suspension parts too.
Okay.
So it's likely that CPC will ship us the body with the closures, with the seals, with the
Okay.
glazing, which is the glass, windshield
Uh-huh.
glass, side glass,
Uh-huh.
along with the frame and the suspension parts.
Okay.
So it
And
may,
the motors too, because Alafe's in Europe as well.
yeah, it may. I still think we'll end up doing the motors here.
Okay.
But it may not be a rolling chassis because
Uh,
shipping such a wide thing is a pain in the ass.
Oh, right. Hmm.
So it may be that it's like a completed vehicle with the suspension drooping and the shocks and springs not on, and then
Hmm.
we're able to stack them 4 high, in a
Right.
container. You could I think we did some So measurements, you can fit like 8 of them in a 20-foot container, 16 of them in a
Is
40.
that kind of the long-term plan, is to ship like mostly completed bodies to the various final assembly sites?
I think the long-term plan is to capitalize, to produce a lot of those parts in the U.S.
Okay.
Uh, bring jobs here. There's a lot of incentives to bring clean tech jobs
Mm-hmm.
to the states. So, I think long term, it's to bring more of that here, and
Mm-hmm.
then CPC could build vehicles for Europe and maybe Asia
I
over
see.
there, but capitalize to have that production closer to home.
Okay.
Uh, the one of the biggest costs for these parts is actually the energy it takes to heat those molds, keep them heated, and press those parts.
Mm,
California is not the place where you want to pay, 17 cents a kilowatt hour for industrial power
I
to
see.
produce those parts. You want to go somewhere that has 4 or 5 cents a kilowatt hour
Uh-huh.
to produce those parts. And Europe is not in a good position now to
Right.
buy power.
Mm-hmm.
Crane thing has made things pretty rough. The big steel blocks that we had were actually made in Germany, and I think we bought them just in time because it was, we purchased them before the Ukraine thing, and then energy rates shot through the roof, but we'd already
Mm-hmm.
paid for them. So luckily, we didn't get a doubling of the cost
Mm.
of those parts. We got them in time, and CPC was able to mill them down and get them going. But Europe is having trouble with energy cost, and
Yeah.
it's an interesting landscape
Yeah.
for energy right now for sure. And to press these parts, you need a lot of energy. So
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't realize that you needed to heat those, but that makes sense. So talking about Alafe, how are they doing? Because as far as we know, their customers that we knew about were you guys, Lordstown, and Lightyear. And Lordstown and Lightyear are defunct. So are are they okay? Like, are they going to be able to supply the motors?
yeah, I mean, one thing, Slovenia is beautiful. So they live in a beautiful part of the world.
Yeah.
If you ever get a vacation to Europe and you can make it to Slovenia,
Uh-huh.
go to Alafe's part of the world. It's
Okay.
a miraculous place. But they had some public clients, but they have way more private clients.
Okay. So they are financially going to survive in long enough to provide you guys motors.
Yeah, and they have bigger motors and smaller motors too. It's not
Mhm.
just the motor that we co-developed with them, which is a pretty cool thing, and
Mhm.
it's super efficient, and does everything it needs to do. But they have big motors for trucks and kind of commercial transportation, and then they have smaller motors too. And I think probably what will be more kind of profitable and a successful program for them long term is kind of their commercial work. So.
Mhm.
Um, they're doing some cool things, and um, Garage is killing it over there in Slovenia, and we can't wait to be shipping a bunch of those motors to the U.S. and Europe and other parts to be put in Apteras.
Mhm. Mhm. So what is still left to be done for the Aptera? Like, what are the part? Like, the body's done, the suspension's done, the motor is done, the battery pack, I guess, is done as well.
Um,
Like, what's
good,
left to do?
good question. What is left? Um, we
I mean, obviously the app is still, you guys are working on the app and the UI because that's kind of the thing you can work on the
Yeah, all
last,
the
right?
all the all the firmware and software is kind of this ongoing thing that we really
Right.
have to put a lot of pressure on,
Uh,
because that can evolve for the next 6 months
right.
before things you really have to be firmed up for production.
Mhm.
um but yeah, the app, I just sat in an app meeting to go through some of the app stuff, and it looks really cool. It really meshes well with the UI UX. I think we've gotten a lot of industry talent that have seen a lot of other really popular electric vehicles out there, and the good and the bad, contribute to our UI UX and our app. So I think it's great to have that kind of talent. On the engineering front, Jason was over in Italy working on the sun visor. And I think we had a couple more things to do on like the clips for the rear storage and the cover for the bunk
Mhm.
rear storage.
Yeah.
It's a frunk in the front and it's a bunk in the back.
Yeah. I think you guys are calling it the bunk, that
Bunk.
little thing
Yeah.
in the floor that you lift up, right? At least that's what
So
Jason calls it. He calls it the bunk.
Yeah. I mean, if you ask Jason, he would say, the interior is, 98, 99% done.
Uh-huh.
Obviously there's some supply chain feedback to
Right.
where they're like, oh, we're going to make it out of this material. So it needs to be 1.2 millimeters thick instead of, 1.1 millimeters thick or
Hmm.
whatever. So
Right.
there's some of that going on for some of the parts and some of the other parts of the vehicle too.
Hmm.
But mostly non-structural parts. All the
Okay.
structural stuff
But
has been.
like HVAC, is that done?
Yeah, HVAC is done. Vents are done.
Solar
All the
done?
solar's been done. Solar is kind of the first to be done.
Okay.
Really the last thing that I kind of was like, oh, I'm surprised that's not done yet is sizing the pumps for our cooling system.
Okay.
So we've designed the cooling system. Roush helped us simulate it and go through all that stuff, component selection. But surprisingly, the actual pumps and the suppliers for the pump have been a bit elusive.
Okay.
To us. So we've been talking with a lot of people. We've tested a lot of pumps,
Hmm.
but it's actually signing a supply agreement on a specific pump that does specifically what we want to do. And we try to limit the number of pumps. We don't want like 8 pumps. We don't want an
Right.
octave valve, like Tesla has. We tried to keep our cooling system very simple,
Hmm.
but there's 2 pumps that when I last talked to Kiva, he's still working on trying to put a pin in.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of the last things that I remember. All the bushings, all the suspension, the dampening, some of that stuff still has to be tuned, but it's
Uh-huh.
already designed in. So the parts designed in, the supplier has been selected and awarded,
Hmm.
but then you got to go through testing with a supplier, and they're like, oh, the durometer on the rubber for that part needs to be stiffer or lighter, and you don't
Hmm.
find that out until you really put it through its paces and give it to them to test for a while. So
How much of the things that you think you're putting in the Aptera is like stuff that's made for Aptera versus like off the shelf stuff? Like the coolant pumps, I imagine you guys are getting like kind of off the shelf stuff and just picking the one that works for you. And I'm guessing the HVAC stuff is similar. Obviously, like the motor is specially designed for Aptera, and of course the body is Aptera. But
it's a question. I know we went through the analysis of that, maybe a year ago. But it seemed like kind of 30% was the stuff that, could cross over to other vehicles.
okay.
Obviously the battery cells are a big ticket item, and those battery cells can be used for a lot of different vehicles. We make them into a bespoke module and then a bespoke pack. But
Uh-huh.
if you were looking at the vehicle holistically, it's latches, it's seals, it's the HVAC stuff, it's DC to DC, it's the cells in the battery pack. But most of the visual stuff that you see is all bespoke,
Okay.
bespoke body,
Right.
bespoke
Right.
seats, bespoke interior parts. It's some of the stuff underneath
Mhm.
that we kind of can recycle from from other automotive players,
Yeah.
and Cherry Automotive, which invested in us and has been a great long term partner. So
Yeah. Now, I thought I heard in one of your previous interviews that you were saying solar glass. Now, does the solar panel have glass on it now? Is that a new thing or has it always been glass or?
it has been glass for a while. I
Oh,
don't know.
really? Okay, so the solar panels have glass on them.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So how does that work? It's like a really huge panel, especially the hatch. Is the glass
It's
not
a really huge
brittle?
panel, but yeah, you'll have to come by the shop and see some of our new solar toys.
Okay,
But
that's thanks. I
it's
mean,
it's
glass seems like
surprisingly flexible, surprisingly strong. I think there's been just a tremendous amount of glass advancements in the past 10 years. Obviously, our cell phones and other flexible
sure.
devices have really needed a different kind of glass, but glass is still just the best. It's the hardest. It's the most scratch resistant
Right.
types of glasses that they have. They're great for impact resistance and other stuff. So we've gone through thousands of coupons of testing different materials here,
Mhm.
and we thought that we could make kind of polycarbonate work long term, and there's different treatments you can do to polycarbonate to make it more scratch resistant.
Mhm.
But in the end, the glass was actually lighter overall,
Hmm.
tougher,
Yeah.
with kind of hail impact and the other things much better.
Hmm.
And you'll be surprised when you come. We'll give you a hood panel to hold on one hand, and you can lift it with 2 fingers.
Wow.
It's crazy light, crazy flexible, and also super hardness. So we've been working with a great company in Hungary on the glass supply, and have just done just done a lot of testing and a lot of work to get.
Uh-huh.
We're actually building a panel with that new glass for Gamma right now, and
Okay.
they've been testing a bunch of panels. I would imagine either this week or next week we'll see that first solar panel with the new glass.
Okay, because the panels that were on Gamma at fully charged were plastic, right? They were
They're
polycarbonate.
polycarbonate, yeah.
Yeah,
So
they're not glass.
and they were the unkind of treated polycarbonate. So
Uh-huh.
once you treat them, like the windshield on the Arcimoto was polycarbonate, but it was treated so you could have windshield wipers and stuff, and it would still stand up. But the ones that we had at fully charged, they were just polycarbonate, like you'd get at Home Depot.
Okay.
I'm more sophisticated than Home Depot, but so you could scratch it, and just moving it around and putting a cover on the vehicle and stuff, it showed a lot of
Yeah.
scratches.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I was afraid of with the plastic, the scratching. So I'm really happy to hear, and I think a lot of people will be happy to hear that it's glass.
Yeah, the polycarbonate is great for impact resistance. It
Uh,
spreads the load really well.
yeah.
Even like bulletproof polycarbonate is out there, and it's a real thing. So
Mhm.
from a kind of impact resistance and spreading force, polycarbonate is great, but glass has just come so far in the last few years, and I didn't really think that we could get a glass solution because I thought it was going to be too heavy. I thought, like, oh, it's going to get a rock chip and shatter. You got to worry about it like a windshield, but it's just not the case. We've done a lot of testing, and it's lightweight, it's super strong, it's crazy scratch resistant, and it does kind of everything we need to do.
Mhm. Well, I forgot to ask one finance question. ATVM loan, where are we on that?
Yeah, the ATVM loan is progressing. We're still have energy into it. Our partners at the DOE are kind of shepherding us through that. We don't think it's a near term solution.
Okay,
It does take a long time to make it through all the gates
I
um,
see.
to get one of those. So it's
Mhm.
kind of future talk, uh,
Okay,
but it's kind of a great way to build our second plant or third plant,
right.
that kind of stuff. So it's not something that's going to step in and help us with probably the first 2,000 vehicles, maybe even 5,000 vehicles. But no, it is something that's on our mind, and Dwayne and our lobbying group is working hard on that to bring it to reality.
Yeah,
Probably
yeah.
a year
Okay.
or 2 years. Yeah.
Okay. I have some rapid fire kind of like tech questions that people want to know. So it was just announced that there's like a 15 amp 12-volt accessory plug in the back.
Mm-hmm.
So we can plug in things. Now, I think a lot of people were hoping that we would have a bigger inverter, kind of like the Ford F-150 has. You could run like power tools or like bigger induction stoves off of.
Yeah.
Was it? What was the decision? What was the decision making
Oh well,
on
the
that?
accessory plug is just it's like a cigarette lighter.
Right, exactly.
So it's not. I mean, you can run an inverter on it to run some small 110 and probably charge your laptop if you only have a 110 out.
Exactly. Yeah.
We also have USB-C that'll put out 60 watts each, so you can charge your laptop off the USB-C as well. But
Okay.
yeah, we plan on making accessible the 12 volt. We haven't really put a lot of focus into, do we want to have you, get under the hood and actually tap into the 12 volt and then run a wire back, or are we
Mhm.
going to run that and run some studs somewhere, where you could tap into the 12 volt from the back, kind of like, some vehicles have like a place where you can remote jump start it because they hide the battery. So you got to put like some studs somewhere so you could jump start it, some of the time. But if you have access to the battery, you can take 1,500 watts, maybe more, maybe 1,800 watts or 2,000 watts at a time. But
Mhm.
our DC to DC converter is 1,500 watts. So there's you would be pulling from the traction pack 1,500 watts anytime you want it.
Right.
So 15 watts is completely tangible, and you could probably run peak of 2,000 watts with no problem. But we haven't put a lot of focus into remote terminals or anything like that, how to get to the 12 volt. But it's there, and our DC to DC converter will provide a lot of power to it. So if people want to have at it with their induction cooktop, or
Uh-huh.
they want to they want to host a band somewhere and have
Yeah.
outdoor lights and run some amps, then the Aptera is a perfect vehicle for it, I think.
Right. But you guys don't have direct access to it at this time. So the launch editions won't have access to the traction battery.
What we've installed, well, I mean, the only limitations to the cigarette lighter is that the wire is not thick enough to carry a lot of current, right? So
Uh-huh.
you could plug in something that's 300 watts probably and get away with it, but
Uh,
if you pull too much power through that, you're just going to blow the fuse, right?
right.
So that's the problem, is it's really the gauge of the wire
Mm-hmm.
that goes back. So we haven't had internal conversations of the need to take 1500 watts out of the 12-volt battery for the launch edition vehicles.
Okay.
If members of the Aptera Owners Club
Uh,
shout loud enough, then maybe we could
okay.
make to that. But
I think there's a group of people that are very interested in that, especially like for people that are interested in like camping. An induction stove would be really cool. Like they have it on the
yeah,
Rivian.
it's one of those things that is a fairly easy aftermarket add too. So maybe
Okay.
something we don't do,
Uh,
but with a couple tools, our 12-volt battery is pretty easy to get to.
mhm,
So to run a line from the 12-volt battery would not be that hard. It's really, what does the cover plate look like, and what does the interface look like? Is it
mhm.
is it an XT90 connector like they use for some solar applications, or what does that connector look like? And
So you can pull like 1500 watts from the 12-volt battery.
yeah, because the DC to DC takes your 400 volts from your traction battery and turns
Uh,
it to 12 volts.
okay.
And that DC to DC box
Uh,
is a 1.5 kilowatt box, so it can basically recharge your battery at 1500 watts.
I
So
see.
you could pull 2000 watts out of your battery. It's just you
Mhm.
wouldn't be recharging it quick enough. So eventually the Aptera would be like, "Whoa, what are you doing, dude? You're
Yeah.
you're stealing all my 12 volt."
Uh-huh.
But 1500 watts is easy because that's what the DC to DC will put back into the battery easily. So
I see.
obviously there's some provisions. If the vehicle's on and you're blaring the music, and the headlights are on, then you already have some load on the 12
Right.
volt. You don't want to take 1500. But if you're not doing anything else, in
Mhm.
theory, yes, we have a 1.5 kilowatt DC to DC converter, and
Okay.
it charges a 12 volt battery. So
Okay. Do you know if that accessory, the cigarette lighter in the back, can that be turned on all the time? Like even when the Aptera is off? You know how some cars, the cigarette lighter turns off when you turn off the car, and other cars you can leave it on?
yeah, that's above my pay grade on
Okay.
the engineering side. So
Okay.
we'll have to get Steve Fambro on
Yep.
the chat.
No problem.
But
All right.
I would imagine that it does not come on unless the vehicle tells it to turn on, because we have a digital fuse block, and it probably doesn't turn that fuse on unless it wants to.
Okay. Does
But
Aptera?
the cool thing about that is through software you can just put it in camp mode, and camp mode turns it on.
Okay,
So
yeah, that's what we want. Like basically, I was thinking some people want to run like small, like little 12-volt refrigerators when they go camping on it. And obviously you'd want that thing on all the time.
good feedback that maybe there needs to be a toggle switch for
Yeah,
toggle 12 volt on all the time.
right, right. Does Aptera have a data privacy policy? Have you guys talked about that? It's been one of these things that people talk about because now cars are big computers on wheels and they can gather a lot of data about things.
We had one, and then we've had suppliers that are like, you need a better one.
Mhm.
So we thickened that up.
Uh,
And yeah, it's interesting what things on the vehicle kind of have to deal with data privacy, things that you wouldn't normally think of.
uh,
And it's really not America that's driving that, it's Europe. They have some
right.
pretty strict policies. So
Mhm.
because we're building with CPC, and some of our components are coming from Europe, we've already had those conversations, and already written those policies, and handed them to the suppliers and say, hey, we're compliant, so sell us your stuff.
Right. Okay. Um, I think I heard recently that you guys lowered the weight of the vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it expected to weigh now?
Um, you
And
know,
what was it expected to weigh before? And how did you guys lower the weight?
still think we're going to be in the 2,200 pound range, but
Okay.
the interesting thing about the Aptera is, every 30 pounds of weight you add, you basically take away a percent of range. So you go to Turkey Day and have too big a meal, and you might have less range coming home in your Aptera. So weight is crucially important for us.
Uh-huh.
Aerodynamic loss first, weight is second, efficiency of the powertrain third. So we're looking to shave weight any way we can, and now that we're finally putting a pin in some of these production parts, mostly the metal parts,
Mhm.
and working with our suppliers in Europe, it's hey, can you eke out a few extra ounces? And the team in Italy have done a great job and kind of basically um, hand it to the supplier, get a quote back. The
Mhm.
supplier kind of analyzes the parts and says, yes, with our process, this part will be strong enough for what you need. And we're able to say, well, could you take 10% of the weight out and have it be the same strength? And
Mhm.
the answer has been yes on a lot of parts. So I think, yeah, in some areas we've gotten a lot lighter. In
Okay.
some areas we've gotten heavier. But that's just the nature. It's mostly a cost thing. So we
Right.
look at one part and they're like, we could sell you this part that weighs 1.6 pounds for $50, or you could have the 1.2 pound one for 300. And we say, okay, we'll take the extra zero point 0.4 pounds because we don't want to pay, double the cost for some of the parts.
Right. So talking about price, I was wondering, are you guys close enough with your supply chain to know to feel comfortable like locking down a price for people? Because I think there's some people that would be like, hey, it'd be nice to lock down the price for current reservation holders and say, hey, like if you if you order now, we'll lock down a price for you. If you order until afterward, we may have to raise the price depending on how things go for us.
Yeah, I wish we could do that, but the supply chain now and we predict in the future will not let us do that.
Okay.
Our pricing is probably going to be much more akin to Tesla. They've adjusted their pricing, as they've needed to, as they've been able to find cheaper parts or cost down certain vehicles in their line. And we think we're probably going to have to be the same way because Detroit, they design a vehicle and they sign all their master supply agreements with all their suppliers, and then they build that vehicle for 5 years. And they've already written the agreement with the supplier to pay $50 per part or
Mm-hmm.
$75 per part. And the supplier said, we will guarantee that part for the 120,000 vehicles in this vehicle program.
Okay.
So it's kind of all locked in. That is not how that's not how Tesla did it.
Okay.
Tesla said, Tesla went to the supply chain and said, we're not playing the Detroit game. We'll order 1,000 parts from you at this price,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll renegotiate. And I think it was very wise of them because as they got higher and higher volumes, it became apparent to their supply chain that, hey, if we want to keep their business,
Mm-hmm.
we need to give them lower prices, or Tesla's going to vertically integrate and take
Mm-hmm.
us out of the supply chain and they're going to build it themselves and put a Tesla sticker on it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think we'll be in that same position where once we build the first 100 vehicles, the first 1,000 vehicles, we'll be able to go back to the supply chain and hopefully get a lot lower cost. It
Mm-hmm.
will cost more money to build the first vehicles. We know this.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a 2-year path to profitability for us.
Right.
So we know we'll be able to work down those prices, but we think we need to keep flexibility, and really what we want to do is inspire our community that we're trying to make the world a better place through solar power transportation, and you guys are on the journey with us, and we want to be as open and honest about our pricing as possible. We're not trying to gouge people. We're not trying to we're just trying to be a healthy company and
Mm-hmm.
scale to building 150,000 Aptera a year.
Mm-hmm.
And that will probably come at a higher cost in the beginning, and then maybe over time, maybe we have a 200-mile range Aptera and we're able to sell for a greatly reduced cost. Or maybe the market's driving us to everybody wants 1,000-mile range now. Everybody's just adventuring in Aptera, so maybe we end up skewing it to the 600 and 1,000-mile range
Mm-hmm.
version. But I think it's going to be a learning process, and it's going to be just having the conversation with our community and our ambassadors and saying, hey, our bill of materials is X. We need to make 17 points of margin to be a healthy company and continue to grow. And
Mm-hmm.
as long as everybody kind of agrees with that, then we spiritually shake hands and drive on into the future.
Mm. Sounds good. Um, I think people have noticed that the pre-order numbers have kind of leveled off or slowed down.
Actually, it's the opposite. It's
Oh, really?
accelerated last
Okay.
couple months. Yeah, I look at the little chart.
Okay.
We can send you a chart if you want to look at it. But
Uh,
there's kind of like the last couple months have been a boost. We had that
okay. Because
fake.
I know you guys have done a ton of like, since Gamma's been back from Europe, there's been a lot of events. You've had a lot of exposure. So I would have thought that the it would have accelerated, but it felt
It
like
hasn't
it's
been, it's not like a huge acceleration, but
uh,
we've been taking pre-orders for over 2 years now. So it's a nice, kind of mountain curve.
okay. So it's
The
still
mountain,
climbing. It's not plateauing.
it is not. And I imagine, what'll happen is once we have the first production in 10
Oh
vehicles,
yeah, it's gonna like
skyrocket.
there's a ton of people that are like, I'm interested in it, but until they prove they can actually deliver a vehicle to a customer, I'm just like not gonna
Yeah.
sign up. I imagine when you first deliver the first vehicle, it's gonna just be like vertical.
Yeah, I mean, it's you get the nightly news, and you get
Mhm.
Edmunds and Car and Driver, and some of these bigger places, a lot of social media people, that are big, and once they give it third party validations, like this is cool, this is the future, you guys should join too. Then
Mhm.
I think, yeah, we don't see ending our affiliate program, or kind of, if you get a referral, 26 referrals get you a free Aptera.
Mhm.
I think that will continue in perpetuity. It just makes sense to me. I don't know why Tesla ever stopped it.
Mhm.
Um, if somebody brings a friend in, it's a pretty easy discount to give somebody, kind of a 3% reward for helping you sell that vehicle.
Mhm.
So I think that there will be a lot of people that will be working to get some referrals as we get closer and closer to production. And we can see that number of pre-orders really explode, and it does nothing but good for us, because the more production we're back ordered, the more I think people will invest in the prospect of building plant 2, 3, 4, and scale us to higher volume production as quick as possible.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Chris. That was great. Um, I think that's all the questions I have for now, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
Well, I appreciate it. The Aptera's owner club has given us some amazing feedback over the months, and now almost a year now. How old's the channel now?
Yeah, it's a little over a year, I think.
Well,
Yeah.
year of awesomeness from the Aptera Owners Club. I can't thank you enough for giving us such positive coverage and bringing some insight to the rest of the industry. To all the Aptera owners out there. So humbled by the gracious support we get on your channel and the positive comments, and happy to share with you guys anytime. We should organize just an Aptera Owners Club YouTube event here, and you can live stream it, and
Oh
then
yeah.
fans can come see us and have a good time.
Yeah, maybe we'll do that on the when the visit down like next month or something.
Yeah, man.
Okay.
See
All
you.
right. Good night, Chris.
Have a good one.
All right.
Thanks, man.
Bye.